Hello, welcome to the Cool Library. I'm Ellen, and in this video I'm going to be talking to you about all of the books that I read within the second quarter of the year. So the books I read in April, May, and June. Now, I read a lot of books, but that's because of a previous video that I have up on my channel where I read 31 books within 31 days. So I will be talking about those books, but not as much, just because I did talk about those books within that video. But total, I read 34 books. Yeah, so it was April I read 1 book, May I read 31 books, and then June I read 2 books. As you can see, reading 31 books in 31 days didn't help with my reading slump. But here they are. I can't hold them up physically because they're too heavy. But this is from here all the way to here. So let's just get right into it. The first thing that I am going to talk about are actually the completed series that I read. So within that video, I completed 2 series. The first one I'm going to talk about is the Chronicles of Narnia series. I read all 7 books, and I read them within the order that the author recommends you read them in. So I read them within chronological order, but not publication order. So the first one was The Magician's Nephew, and then The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and then The Horse and His Boy, Prince Caspian, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, The Silver Chair, and then The Last Battle. So this series, if you don't know, this is a very famous series. It's like a classic book series by C.S. Lewis about this fantasy world called Narnia. And we have 4 children. They're the Pevensey children. They're brothers and sisters. They find themselves transported to that world. And it's just about the adventures that they have within that world, I guess. And then within the last couple of books, we get some more new characters going into Narnia. We get like a cousin of theirs, a friend, whatever. And they all just have adventures in Narnia and try to help Narnia. It's a very fun, like middle grade fantasy series. I did very much enjoy these. So I believe what it was my least favorite was the Silver Chair. I think that's mainly because I don't remember much about this one, and I don't remember anything about a silver chair. So this was my least favorite. And then the next is The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. I really liked the whole beginning and like first half of the book, but then the second half just got a little too confusing. And like I mentioned in that video that I made where I talk about these books, I don't like the way that he writes battle scenes. So this one had a battle and I didn't really like how it was written. Next was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Very plain and simple. Next is The Magician's Nephew. This was kind of like a prequel and how Narnia was created, and I really actually enjoyed this one. Then we had The Last Battle. I thought this was a good ending to the series. Not a great ending, but a good ending, and I still very much enjoyed it. Then my second favorite was Prince Caspian. Yeah, this is definitely a really great book. And then surprisingly, my favorite within the series was The Horse and His Boy. I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. I don't know why I loved this one so much. I was not expecting to love this one, and I did. The next completed series that I have is the Lock and Key graphic novel series by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez. After reading these, I definitely still need to watch the TV show for these, because this is a fantastic graphic novel series, definitely one of my favorites. But this is a graphic novel series about these 3 children and their mom. They move in with their uncle after the death of their father. Very traumatic, brutal death. So all of these kids are kind of experiencing different forms of trauma and grief, and like same with the mom. And so we're dealing with that, but they realize that this house that they're living in has a bunch of different keys that does a bunch of different things. The first one that they find within the first book, I'll at least mention that one, is a key that when you unlock the door with that key and you go through the door, you become a ghost. Yeah. I think the villain of the series is a great villain. The villain could like really get within your mind, and it was very like psychological, but then the villain was also very manipulative and would come across as like someone else when really they're this like evil person. And I think just like this story as a whole, I never knew where it was going. It was so surprising and exciting. This is also horror, so there are some scary moments, but it was definitely a very fun time, and I loved this series. So I couldn't remember the order I put them in within that vlog, but this is the order I'm putting them in now. It could be the same, but who knows. So last I have Head Games as my least favorite, but still a really great one, 4 stars. And then next was Clockworks, and then Alpha and Omega, the last one in the series. And then Crown of Shadows. My second favorite was Keys to the Kingdom. And then first favorite was Welcome to Lovecraft, the very first one in the series. Now, the rest of the books are all pretty much standalones-ish. Some of them aren't, but I'm gonna talk about them in order of my rating. So my least favorite to my favorite, not including the series, because I felt weird breaking the series up, so I just wanted to talk about them together. First, I have Loser by Jerry Spinelli. This one definitely was a loser. It is 2.5 stars. This book gave me nothing. This story gave me nothing. Next, another 2.5 was An Offer from a Gentleman by Julia Quinn. This is the 3rd book in the Bridgerton series. This one is following Benedict. But this is probably my least favorite so far within the series. I still have not read any of the other ones, but I definitely need to read the Colin and Penelope one, because I know that's becoming the 3rd season for the show. This was very much a Cinderella type story. Again, more of my thoughts in that vlog. Then coming in with a 3.5 is Shakespeare, The World as Stage by Bill Bryson. This is a nonfiction about Shakespeare's life. It's very short because we don't know a whole lot about Shakespeare's life. Not a lot of it was recorded, so most of it is speculation. Overall, this was fine, but I was also just a little bit bored with this one. But if you are a fan of Shakespeare, like I am, I think this will be of benefit. Another 3.5 is Letter to My Daughter by Maya Angelou. This had a lot of really great moments, but overall was, again, kind of boring. And then there were a couple like stories or things that she mentioned in here that I didn't quite understand why we were talking about it. But overall, still enjoyable. Next is Crash by Jerry Spinelli. I read a couple Jerry Spinelli because Jerry Spinelli was my favorite author when I was growing up as a kid. Stargirl was definitely my favorite book of his, which I did read that back in 2019, I think. Like, I reread that one and I absolutely still love that book to this day. So that's one that definitely holds up. This one was just okay. It's about like this kid who's a football player and he bullies this other kid who is just a nice kid but is like considered a weirdo or like a loser. I guess the loser from the other book maybe. But it's about like, but we're in like the bully's head and the bully's perspective, which is what I didn't quite like reading from. And the ending was just wrapped up way too quickly, but still a very nice and enjoyable enough story. Now next on the list is a 3.5, and this one was not within that vlog where I read 31 books, so this is a brand new book to talk about, and that is Only on the Weekends by Dean Atta. I really enjoyed The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. I think I gave that one either 4.5 or 5 stars. It's a fantastic book, so I was really excited for his new book. It is a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. It's definitely over 550 pages, but it is written all in verse, although this one didn't feel as written in verse like his other book did, which I think might be one of the reasons why I didn't like it as much. It kind of read like a novel rather than a novel written in verse. This one is about this kid, if I could remember names it'd be great, Mac, who is gay, he's out and proud, and he has a crush on one of his fellow students at school. His name's Kay. He's like a hotshot basketball player. They end up having like this secret romance, but then his dad and him move away because his dad's a very famous director, and they're moving, I think it was like to Scotland for a shoot, and the main actor of that shoot is also gay, and they start forming an attachment even though he's still with Kay, and it's this like really weird thing. I don't think I liked the ending of this book. By the end he does choose between two of the boys, and I think he should have chosen the other one. But that's just my opinion. I think for me, just reading this, I never felt any sort of attachment to any of the characters, so I didn't actually care that much throughout the entire story. But it's still an overall good story. I just felt like it brought nothing new to the table. Sorry if that felt like a harsh review for a 3.5 star book, but I don't know. Alright, next I have The Death of Vivek Oji by Akwaeke Emezi. This was like a really great story and really impactful, but at the same time, it's literary fiction, and there's something about literary fiction that I can't seem to jive with. I think maybe it's just like the writing style of literary fiction. Just, I don't know, I can't do it. It's like too boring for me. So this was boring, but still also a really great story. This is about a mother coping with the death of her son, Vivek Oji. As well, not just her mother, but we also follow, like, I believe his cousin and maybe like a friend too, I think. Sorry, it's been a while since I've read this, so I'm trying to remember. But it's just like this, like them dealing with his death, but also like the scenario with which are surrounding his death, like with how he died. There's racism, there's homophobia, there's a lot of that stuff going on within this book, so I do think this is a great book, but it still was a little too boring for me. Another 3.5 book that I'm very sad was 3.5 stars, and it was not within that vlog, and that is Misrule by Heather Walter. This is the second and final book within the Malice duology. I think that's officially what it's called. The first book being Malice, I read last year. I gave it 5 stars. It was, I believe, in my top 5 books of last year. I love that book, so I was so looking forward to Misrule, and like, this cover is stunning, but for me this book fell flat. Okay, in the beginning it kind of felt like they were straying apart from the lesbian aspect of the story, which was the whole reason for me reading this series, which I feel like I should explain the synopsis. But for the first book, it's a Sleeping Beauty retelling, except Aurora, the Sleeping Beauty herself, and the character that's supposed to be representing Maleficent, her name is Alice, they fall in love. That's pretty much the scenario and the synopsis and all you need to know. But this one follows what happens at the end of that book, but I was also kind of pissed because it's like 100 years later, and I'm like, 100 years after what just happened? After reading it, I get now why they did that, but it was just like way too big of a time jump for me. It felt like they were straying away from the lesbian aspect of the story for a bit there. And then, but my main issue is, okay, I actually have like 2 main issues. Number 1, the ending of the book just felt like they were doing way too much. It was just like twist and then another twist and then another twist and then another twist and another twist, and it just got too much. It got too much. And then the other issue that I had with it is that I felt a lot of the characters, especially our main 2 characters, kept making choices that I didn't understand. Like, it just didn't make sense for that character to make that decision. Or, like, that phrase coming out of that character's mouth didn't make sense. Like, it was just a lot of things that character choices that I don't think would have been made by said character. That was just kind of frustrating, because it's like, why is she mad? Like, why is she mad? Like, I know she's explaining why she's mad, but it still doesn't make any sense to me. So stuff like that was just bugging me. But overall, I still enjoyed it. It just was not, I think maybe I just had way too high expectations because of the first book, and that could have been the problem with this one, and that's on me. But still, 3.5. My last 3.5 is going to be We Belong by Cookie Hipponia. This one I really enjoyed a lot. This was in that blog, so I do talk about it more, but this is a middle grade, what? Poetry? Fantasy? Mythology? We have like 3 different generations going on. We also have mythology aspect to it. Tagalog mythology specifically. I enjoyed it. I forget why I gave it 3.5 stars. For a 4-star, I have The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. I read this within that blog. I literally cannot remember. These are 2 essays written by James Baldwin. It's nonfiction. I believe both essays are about racism. One of them does involve religion, and I think like why he decided to break away from the Christian faith. But it mainly deals with racism, and this was written in the 60s, so it was very time period to the 60s. And I think maybe that's why I struggled with this book a little bit, was just because of like the writing style was hard to get into. But I liked the things that were being said. My next 4-star is one that was not in that vlog, and this is, I believe, the last book that was not in that vlog. So if you watch the vlog, you probably don't need to watch the rest of this video, which is probably not a great thing for me to say if I want people to watch my videos. But it doesn't matter. The next book is Better Nate Than Ever by Tim Federle. I read this book because it was becoming a movie, and I was going to turn it into one of my videos where I read the book and then I watch the movie and we discuss and decide a winner. But I actually, when I was like going to edit that video, I was not liking it like at all. And I had this thing where it's like, if I don't feel like watching this video, why am I editing it and putting it together? So I just didn't do it. Sorry. But I did enjoy the movie and I enjoyed the book. I did not know that there was a sequel to this book, but when the book ended, I was like, what? And then there is a sequel, so you get to find out, I guess, what happens. But like, the ending leaves it very open-ended. But this is about a child who finds out that they're casting a musical, but they want like a child within the musical. I forget what musical it is, but it's a musical with children in it, on Broadway. So he sneaks away from home and goes to New York and auditions for this musical. He runs into his aunt there, who he doesn't see very often because his aunt and his mom have a very strained relationship, as well as like him and his brother, they have a strained relationship, which is much more apparent in the book than it is in the movie. In the movie, it's not such a strained relationship. It's like a typical brother relationship, but this one definitely felt more like they don't get along. And then he also has his best friend who kind of like helps him out with this sneaking away thing. In the book, she is not in New York City with him. She is at home trying to cover for him, but in the movie, she is with him in New York City. So that was like a very big change. I enjoyed both. I enjoyed this one. I'm trying to remember why it's a 4-star. Like there must have been, I mean, it's hard for me to give children's books 5 stars because I am an adult, and that's what it was. Now that I think about it, the choices that the adults made within the book were a little questionable. I'm like, I don't think an adult would have done that, but okay. And I think a lot of things were just way too like over the top. But then again, it's a book about a theater kid. Everything is going to be over the top. So that actually makes sense. But still, 4 stars. Enjoyed it. All right, let's fly through these next ones since I've already talked about them in another video. But I have I'm a Wild Seed by Sharon Lee De La Cruz. A very short, like, comic graphic novel. Probably more comic. Non-fiction, though, about Sharon Lee De La Cruz's, her identity crisis, I guess we want to call it. Her realizing she's gay, but I think it also does deal with racism, too. It deals with a lot of different topics, but mainly her sexuality. I really liked it. It was very short. It took me, I want to say maybe like 30 minutes to read this, which thank God. I needed something that was going to be really short. I think my only gripe with this is that I wanted more. Like, I wish it was longer. Like, it felt like she was just like really, like, it was just felt like a lot of skimming through a lot of different topics that I felt like needed more depth. They needed to be talked about more. Like, more could have definitely been said. And yeah, she just went through really quickly through all this stuff, and I wish it had just been longer. All right, next 4-star, I have Things My Son Needs to Know About the World by Fredrik Backman. I really like Fredrik Backman. I read a couple of his other stuff. I still have more to read of his, but I really like his stuff. I think his is literary fiction, but like, or is his contemporary. I don't know. Either way, this is his nonfiction. He writes like a bunch of different letters to his son about things that he wants his son to know about the world. Some of them are silly, some of them are serious. But I just really like Fredrik Backman's writing style. It's very like humor. Like there's a lot of humor involved with it while also still being serious about a topic. My last 4 stars, so my favorite of the 4 stars is going to be Kim Ji-young, Born 1982 by Cho Nan-ju. This was a really great story. I was not expecting to enjoy this as much as I did because again, I was like, this is literary fiction. I don't know how I'm gonna feel about it, but man, oh man, this was fantastic. This is about a woman, Kim Ji-young. She was born in 1982 and this is her life, like just her life and everything that has happened, but it has a lot of discussion about sexism within the world, especially towards women and all the struggles that we go through that men don't know about and have never even thought about. But it's like, so in the beginning, my only issue is like the beginning and the very end, because the very beginning and the very end were very confusing to me. I didn't quite understand the ending, and the beginning I was very confused as to like who was who character wise. But it does start off with her like she's definitely mentally not there and like there's something wrong with her and her husband's worried, and it's like, okay, then we get to the beginning of her life and we're like, okay, we're gonna find out why like something isn't right with her and she definitely needs like therapy or something. And then you read the book and you're like, oh, that's why, because she is a woman and has dealt with a lot of sexism. It will punch you with all that information in a way I was not expecting to be punched. But still very much enjoyed this a lot. I recommend this highly. Now, the first of my 4.5 stars is Arusha and the Nectar of Immortality by Roshni Chokshi. This is the 5th and final book within the Pandava series. It's a middle grade fantasy based off Hindu mythology. And this is the only book within the series I have given 4.5 stars. All the other books have been 4. This one was great. It was a great ending to this series. It's still very humorous, very funny, and I absolutely loved these children. And I loved that Rudy got to tag along in this one. He's always just been like a side character, but in this one, he was a lot more present and got to like help out in the battle with them. Next, I have Address Unknown by Katherine Cressman Taylor. I loved this. I can't remember why I didn't give it 5 stars, but there was a reason. You can watch that video to find out because I can't remember. But this was a fantastic, very short little story. It used, what was it? Oh yeah, it was originally published in 1938, I think within a magazine. But this is about how Nazism is really affecting the minds of people within Germany. So with this, it's a bunch of different letters back and forth between 2 best friends. One is in Germany and one is in San Francisco. The one in San Francisco is Jewish, the one in Germany is not. And it's just about the fall of their friendship and how Nazism is really like warping this guy's mind in Germany. And the reason I absolutely love this though is that ending is perfect. In the last 4.5, I have The Girl and the Goddess by Nikita Gill. These are stories and poems based off of Hindu mythology as well, if I remember correctly. Because a lot of things that were referenced in here were also within Arusha. So that felt cool. I really love Nikita Gill. I love her writing style. I love her poetry. And this one was just great. So we have our main character, Paro. She is met with a different goddess every single time she has a difficult struggle within her life or a lesson that she needs to learn. And yet it follows her all the way from childhood to adulthood. And it's truly great. Now my 5 stars, there are 4 of them. The very first one is Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. I think this is my very first Stephen Graham Jones book that I have read. It's a horror which kind of turns into a psychological thriller. It's fantastic. The only issue, even though it's still a 5-star. It's not multiple mannequins, it's just one mannequin. So I don't know why it's called Night of the Mannequins, but a mannequin comes to life and starts killing these children. That's all I'm gonna say. It's fantastic. My battery is dying, so I'm gonna go really quick. Next is Nick and Charlie by Alice Oseman. This is a novella following Nick and Charlie. I absolutely love the Heartstopper graphic novel series as well as the Heartstopper TV show. It's really great. And this is following their relationship, I think, after the Heartstopper series. But it's like Nick is going off to college, Charlie is staying for his last year of high school, and that little like rift that's going with that, like, are they gonna break up? Are they not? I don't know. But it was great, 5 stars. Next 5 stars is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. What else can I say? Emily Henry is great. This is an adult romance between a book editor and a book agent. Oh my god, why am I forgetting already? But it's fantastic. It's kind of like an enemies to lovers, but also co-workers to lovers. It's great. The chemistry between their 2 main characters is fantastic. And then lastly, my favorite book of the second quarter of the year so far is Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs by Caitlin Doughty, a nonfiction book about death. Caitlin Doughty answers a bunch of questions from children about death. Some of them are really funny. Can everybody fit in a casket? What if they're really tall? Is someone trying to sell, if someone's trying to sell a house, do they have to tell the buyer someone died there? Did mummies stink when they were wrapped? Did Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs? Lots of really great questions that kids have asked about death, and Caitlin Doughty does a really great job of answering them. And it was great. Yeah, so those are the books I read within the second quarter of this year. I also have a wrap up of where I talk about the movies that I watched within the second quarter of this year, so you can go check that out. I'll link that down below, as well as my vlog where I read 31 books within 31 days, so you can get more of my thoughts on those books. And yes, the battery is really dying now, so I am gonna go, and I will see you guys later with more videos. Bye!